High ticket marketing really does require patience and relationship building rather than kind of aggressive conversion tactics. Just be patient. Know that if you do the foundational things and kind of put these things into place, that it's going to come. Don't be so eager for the sale because that's going to rub people the wrong way.
And your email and SMS program need to match that customer natural buying decision rather than trying to accelerate it artificially. Don't try to accelerate buying decisions artificially. Provide them with all the different things.
High ticket customers often becomes your most valuable advocates and repeat customers. This investment in relationship building does pay dividends well beyond the initial sale.
Yeah, the longer the sales cycle actually creates an opportunity to build a stronger relationship and deepen the brand loyalty than quick purchases ultimately.
If you're just getting started with this high ticket marketing, begin by first mapping out kind of your customer's actual decision-making process, and then align your email and SMS sequences to support each stage.
Yo, what's up, Chase? How you doing, dude?
Good, man. I growing the beard out, as you mentioned. I wasn't prepared for the pod today, but here I am excited.
This is what happens. You get lazy, work from home, and you're growing beards.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. What are we talking about today?
The topic I have on our agenda today is about email and SMS marketing for high ticket products, nurturing longer sales cycles. I think because we're in the depth and like the midst of working on this stuff internally on some of the stuff that we sell in the market, I thought it'd be cool to talk about it and all the research that we've kind of done thinking about all this stuff. And, I thought the listeners would love to hear about something we're working on today.
Yeah, dude, let's run it.
All right, cool. Well, let's shoot this thing in 3, 2, 1.
From the open to the click, they're the masters of the flow. Just watch your list grow and your leads turn to gold. Did we retain you so far, or do we have to extend it? If you want results, you gotta send it. Yeah, you gotta send it. Yeah, you gotta send it. Yeah, you gotta send it.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Send It, where we discuss anything and everything retention marketing, specifically in email and SMS marketing and e-commerce. My name is Jimmy Kim, and I'm here with my co-host,
Chase Dimond.
All right, Chase, as I kind of mentioned before, today we're doing episode 36, email and SMS for high-ticket products nurturing longer sales cycles. So today we're going to dive into a topic that's becoming increasingly important in e-commerce world, I think, which is marketing higher ticket products with email and SMS. We all know that, you need to have a certain AOV in order to sell online, and not saying that you can't, but like typically the ones that are successful in the market do have a higher AOV. And I think people are leaning towards the online move to kind of go into that. So most of our conversation today is going to focus on like those fast moving consumer goods where the purchase decision is happening quickly, but I think that there's a spectrum of people who are selling products that take a much longer sales consideration process ultimately.
Yeah, right on. And that's everything from, luxury watches to high-end furniture to professional equipment and even kind of expensive supplement and skincare. You'd be surprised. So, with these products, they really do require a completely different email and SMS strategy, which we're going to discuss today.
Yeah. And, the challenge that it's the traditional e-commerce marketing tactics have, like aggressive abandoned cart sequences or flash sales, they often backfire with high ticket product items because customers need time to research, compare, and justify their investment.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why today we're going to break down some specific strategies for nurturing these longer sales cycles, ways in which you can build up trust through your email and SMS programs, and ultimately have the goal of converting prospects who might take weeks or months to, speed up and ultimately make their final decision in choosing your brand versus the competitors.
Yeah, and before we dive in to these tactics, let's establish what we mean by high ticket and understanding psychology behind these longer purchases. You want to break that down?
Yeah, for sure. So starting kind of with this, so high ticket doesn't just mean expensive. It means that the kind of the purchase itself requires some significant level of consideration, relative to maybe their disposable income, and therefore it kind of involves like what people perceive as this kind of high risk purchase.
All right. So we're thinking like a $500 product that may be a high ticket for
Yeah,
one customer, but it could be an impulse buy for another customer. And it's about the
yeah,
customer relationship of the price point and the stakes that are involved there. So things that require like extended research or comparison phases, which could take days or even months, depending on what you're buying. The multiple touch points, right? We know that when you're buying something expensive, like a sauna online, for example, which are a couple $1,000s, requires a lot of touch points. There's a lot more involvement by multiple decision makers. So So it's not just one person. I'm sharing it to my wife, for example. Usually social proof becomes a big thing because there's a greater need for it for credibility. There needs to be some kind of emphasis around like longevity or ROI or value justification to make a person feel like they're spending a lot of work. And I think the biggest thing, and the biggest thing that I think about psychology, is the fear of buyer remorse, which is driving a careful evaluations period.
Yeah, and on a quick kind of related tangent, I just bought a coffee maker. I just started drinking coffee. And dude, I spent weeks looking at $100 one, a $300 one, a 500, $1,000 one. And I was just so overwhelmed by the number of options. And in my mind, like the cheaper felt like the quality just wasn't there. And then the real expensive ones just felt like, oh man, dude, this is like rocket science. So I ended up going with one that was kind of somewhere in the middle just because I felt like I wanted to spend enough and they had enough good social proof. And I bought it on Amazon. So for whatever reason, it didn't work out. But I just went through this and it's like, it took weeks, not because like I didn't have the money, but just because I couldn't make the decision. So a lot of stuff that you mentioned is super important. And with that, right, like the psychological element of it really is fundamental and different from a quick purchase. Like, me buying the t-shirt I bought, dude, it took me 2 seconds. So, with these kind of higher ticket items, especially when there is a lot of competition, customers are often trying to convince themselves to buy rather than looking for reasons not to buy.
And let's not forget, I think you also have an emotional component along with the rationale, rational evaluation that comes into place. Like people buying like luxury items, they want to feel special. And while those buying professional equipments want to feel more competent and successful ultimately.
Yeah, and that really creates kind of these unique opportunities for both email and SMS because you have the time to build the relationships and nurture people and ultimately tell stories rather than rushing the conversion. So, some of the advantages of email and SMS for high ticket sales are A, the ability to nurture relationships over the extended period of times as mentioned. B, kind of the opportunity to deliver kind of comprehensive education and value, especially in email, because you can be a little bit more long form. And they really are the perfect channels for, building trust because you're constantly communicating. Some of these people could be hearing from you daily, at the very least, they should be hearing from you weekly. And then from there, it's very cost effective to stay top of mind, right? You can constantly send them value and tips and tricks and, how to's and reviews and this, that, and the other. So that way, when they are considering it, you're constantly showing up as like that helpful friend, for lack of a better word. And ideally, right, you're also delivering like the social proof and addressing the objections over time that these people are going to have.
Yeah. And you know what I find interesting is that high ticket customers often prefer email over any other channel because they want that detailed information they can review and reference back later too.
Yeah, for sure. And SMS, not to forget, is really powerful for high ticket sales when used strategically. Not really for like aggressive promo, but more for like, hey, first dibs, early access, exclusive access, personal service. Like, how can we best support and assist you? How can we help you find the product that's most relevant? And ultimately, it's just sending people things that are super timely.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I think the key learning factor, the insight, is that email and SMS needs to match the customer's natural buying cycle or their buying process rather than trying to accelerate it artificially. I think that's a big change that you have to take mentally when you're selling that higher ticket price. So let's go into some strategy because I think we have learned a couple strategies as we've been applying into it. And I wrote them down here, so I want to make sure that we go through them. But our first strategy focused on like an education driven nurture sequence that builds expertise and trust over time. What do you think about that?
Yeah, dude, I agree. I think this is crucial for kind of high ticket products because customers really need to become educated buyers before they're ready to make these significant investments with, your client or your own company.
Yeah. So, unlike the quick purchase products where you might focus on urgency and emotion, high ticket products require you to position yourself as a almost like a trusted advisor throughout the learning process. And, for us, we kind of came up with a framework when we were thinking about it, and it was kind of an educational framework, right? You want to start off with some progressive education that builds expertise over time. For us, for example, we've been in email for so long, we talk about that in our thing. So, we start with the foundational concepts that customers need to understand, especially if they've never heard of us, right? Then we need to gradually increase like more sophistication. So like this pod, for example, for this is going to help us build this like sophistication because we talk about it all the time, each week and week out, as we're on like episode 35 now. And then when you go into that natural progression, I think it's important to take a person and make them not know the basics, because that's like the basics of why you're there, but really help them progress into that more advanced topic side of things. And then, of course, you use email to build on those previous knowledge points to talk about it. From there, you have to address like the complete customer research journey cycle. I think the key here is you have to help the customer identify their specific needs and requirements, right? And give them different options, right? On features that you have. And ultimately, I believe that one of the things that are really important is to give some kind of unbiased comparison that includes a competitive product. We see this often, like this versus that, or this versus us versus them. Like you need to make him that you're sharing that decision-making criteria from not only yourself, but also industry experts too. It's all going to help because that's the social proof we need. And finally, I really think when you're buying a high ticket product, what really matters is the establishment of leadership or credibility ultimately, right? Being able to share like internal or external exports of product development, behind the scenes about like how you guys develop it, exclusive research and industry trends that you might have. And ultimately, you're trying to connect the customer with relevant case studies and use cases, which will make them feel more comfortable that you know what the heck you're selling and talking about, especially when those products are much more expensive.
Hey there, it's Chase, and I really hope you're enjoying this pod. If I could have just 30 quick seconds of your time, I'd love to invite you to our thriving, growing community for retention marketers. Jimmy and I realized that there were no centralized communities for retention marketers like yourself and myself, where we're specifically focused on email and SMS. Most of the communities out there seem to be just for founders or for execs only. And this is really why we're proud to share on this pod that we have over 350 marketers like myself and yourself and Jimmy in a closed community on Slack. And we talk all day, every day about all things email and SMS. So if you're listening to this podcast, I want to invite you to come and join us. And the best news, it's literally $1 to get started for a trial. And with that, you're going to get access to the Slack community, our weekly private newsletter where we share actionable things you can do as an email marketer. And then we also have special meetups and webinars that are specifically retention focused. And with that, you're also going to have direct access to not only myself, but Jimmy as well. So hit us up, ask us what you have, and we're going to be able to deliver you the answers. And then last but not least, you're going to get some special discounts and some other really cool perks. So this is where we're hanging out. It's the best way to come hang out with us, talk with others like us and like yourself. So you've got to come join us. And again, it's called the Ecom Email Certified Community, where you can learn more at ecomemailcertified.com, or just check out the show notes for a direct link. Hope to see you there. And now we're back to the pod. Yeah, dude. I think what's really powerful about kind of these educational sequences that you're describing is that they ultimately create value even if the customer doesn't purchase today, right? So even if there's not an immediate sale that's happening, it really helps build long-term brand affinity and positions you for future sales. And that's super important.
Yeah, one of the examples that I really liked that I saw when I was kind of doing my research around this was Purple Mattress. And they used their email nurture to educate the customer about sleep science and mattress construction and the problems with traditional mattresses before even ever talking to me about their specific problems. You got another example?
Yeah, that's a great one. And I'd say additionally, folks like Peloton, for example,
Oh
they've
yeah,
got
that's a
some
good one.
really, really great kind of pre-purchase emails that focus on fitness goals, how to set the home gym for, optimal efficiency, right? And really kind of the science behind working out rather than just promoting their bikes and treadmills.
Yeah, and I think the key in structuring these sequences is to almost mirror the customer's natural learning progression. So let me break this down on the way that we thought about it and how I think you have to think about it in the most broadest way. So your initial contact, that first week or two, you're basically kind of doing a foundation and problem identification. You're helping the customers understand a broader category or the industry that you do. You kind of identify the common problems or the inefficiencies of a current solution, and then you tell them why this matters and why this investment's worthwhile. So you kind of set the foundation first. Then you start going to like solution and criteria development. And that means like basically like this. You're introducing like different approaches and solution types. You're helping customers figure out how they should evaluate this. And then you're sharing that framework so they can compare stories. And then it leads you to this like bigger like advanced consideration and expertise building that comes into place, right? And what I mean by this is like you're going to start addressing implementations and maintenance and usage optimization. You're going to share expert insights. You're going to cover those sophisticated features and those technical considerations. And then, one thing that's hard about high ticket products is after that, you got to continue to go and build that ongoing value and relationship maintenance, because the consideration cycle can be 60, 90, 120, even 3 years ultimately. It really depends on how expensive what it is. Like I've been looking at saunas, for example, and I don't even know why I want one. It's hot as hell here in Texas anyways, but like I've been looking at them for like a year now and trying to decide what I want. Do I want infrared or do I want traditional stone, right? And what I think I like, and I've been following different places that do this stuff, is they tell me about new industry trends and innovations, and they tell me about success stories, and they offer me insights, and they're basically giving me ongoing value and relationship maintenance through like the information that I feel is relevant because I'm still in that consideration phase. So that's kind of the framework that I think about.
Yeah, I think the sauna, the mattress, these are like great examples to think about. But obviously, right, it also skews a little bit cheaper. But with that, I think that's great. And I'd add that SMS can play a supporting role here by delivering kind of key insights or did you know type content that reinforces the educational emails. We talk about this a lot, but they should not be siloed channels. They should be channels that really are cohesive, that work together, incrementally drive more engagement from one another. So both channels really should be having kind of clear pathways for customers to get kind of more of this personalized advice or consultation when they're ready for more specific kind of hand-holding type guidance. And really the measurement for these more educational sequences is different too. So here you want to track engagement depth and kind of progression through the content, not just conversion, because conversion isn't the end all be all. It's part of it, but it's not the entire recipe.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. That's good points that you're thinking about here. All right, let's move to our second one. Our second strategy we focused on was building trust through radical transparency, which is essential, I think, for high ticket price, right? Trust is absolutely crucial when customers are making a significant financial commitment and they need to feel confident that both product and the company behind it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, agreed. I think transparency and all this really is a super effective way to build trust. And email and SMS, again, is the place to do this, right? The place to share the information that most companies keep internal. So let's talk now about kind of this transparency based trust building framework that we kind of developed. So starting at the top, we're going to talk about kind of more behind the scenes product and company insights. So again, the more that you can kind of humanize your brand and show that it's people on the other side, that's great because the end of the day, people are buying from people. So here you want to share the story behind the product development and design decisions, introducing kind of team members and their expertise, explaining kind of quality control processes and standards, and showing kind of the manufacturing or creation process openly. So one of the clients that we worked with in the past at our agency was 8 Sleep, right? We're talking about mattress companies. And we did a really cool sequence where it was a 9 email sequence, and they were all sent as campaigns, but essentially we interviewed a different person from a different department, everyone from the founder to the manufacturing, person to the ops person to CS. And we just asked them like for their name, their role, what their day looks like, and essentially like their favorite product or products that 8 Sleep sells. And people love that. People were responding, people were buying because again, humanizing that brand is just so important. And then from there, there's kind of this component of financial and business transparency. So you're going to want to kind of explain your pricing structure and what customers are paying for. It has to be crystal clear, like the value exchange of what they're getting and how much they're paying. Kind of sharing key information about warranties, guarantees, and kind of service commitments. So in the case of like a mattress or a sauna, when you're spending 1,000, 3,000, 5,000 plus dollars, you're going to want to understand like, well, what's in it that kind of protects you because that's a lot of money to go spend. And being really upfront about kind of limitations or considerations. That way people don't feel like they have buyer's remorse and feel like they were gypped or feel like there was kind of they were had misleading information. And then discussing kind of company values and business practices. This kind of ties it together where you can really show that you're above board, that you really care about your customers, that you really take care of them. God forbid something was to happen. And then the last one, kind of that's part of this framework, is the customer service and kind of support transparency. So really important to set clear expectations about response times and support availability. Are you online 24/7? Can people access you at any point in time? Or do you have more limited hours that are between, let's call it 8 to 5 PST Monday through Friday? What does that look like? And I think people are okay with whatever it is as long as you're upfront about it. And then kind of sharing examples about how you've handled problems or concerns in the past allows people to feel a lot more comfortable and kind of let their guard down with you. And then lastly, kind of like providing direct access to decision makers when appropriate. I think that's a really cool thing. It's a really differentiated thing.
Yeah, and what I love about the transparency approach is it does differentiate you. I think your competitors, especially if you're working against like a legacy company, like a mattress company, for example, who tell you nothing, you're differentiating your site self from competitors who keep this information quite hidden.
Yeah, exactly. Right now, with the rise of AI and ChatGPT and obviously Google, people want access to data, and those that are kind of withholding that data and are more secretive, that kind of ends up being a red flag. So the more transparent that you are, that actually is now a competitive advantage.
Yeah, and a company that I would say that is an old company that does a great job and has is Rolex actually. Like they do a brilliant job sharing detailed content about their like manufacturing process, their quality testing and their expertise in their crafts. People, it like they really try to justify their premium price by sharing the behind the scenes kind of things.
Yeah, that's a great one. And then one other one to add would be a company like Herman Miller. They share a lot of details about
Mm.
their design process, how they source their manufacturing materials, how they apply sustainability and kind of those types of practices for their high-end office furniture.
Hey, okay, I'm disrupting the pod for just a quick 60-second break and a quick little shout out to our title sponsors of the podcast, OmniSend. Okay, for those that don't know, OmniSend is an all-in-one email and SMS marketing automation platform specifically designed for e-commerce brands. They make it super easy to engage with customers, drive repeat sales, and create those seamless personal experiences we're always talking about. Here's 3 things I love about OmniSend. First and foremost, they're trusted by over 125,000 e-commerce merchants worldwide that absolutely love them. With a 4.8 rating star with over 6,000 reviews on the Shopify App Store, it's an obvious choice for your email, SMS, and push needs. Secondly, I love great customer support. And OmniSend, they're absolutely nailing it. They're responsive, their help docs are great, and their team is absolutely fantastic. And third, they have great features and better pricing. Pricing matters just as much as features, and OmniSend, you're going to get both of those. And they have all the features you need for your store, and their pricing is absolutely fantastic. In fact, recently I just heard a story about 2 community members that made the switch. One reduced his price from $8,500 to $3,500, which is huge, but even bigger, that $3,500 included SMS, which is absolutely wild. Then another agency I just recently talked to, they just switched their entire client base over, and he's been saving his clients anywhere from 30 to 60% off their bill, which is allowing them to take that money and reinvest it on the top of the funnel so they can make more ads and make more money. OmniSend nails these 3 things that I care most about: great support, great features, and fair pricing. Plus, I just helped Chase make the move to OmniSend with his own personal email list, and their migration was super easy. They even have a team to help you support you, and they have a great automated tool to bring your contacts right over. So if you're looking to take your email marketing to the next level, I highly recommend checking out OmniSend. They got the tools, the automation, the expertise to help your brands grow and thrive. Head over to omnisend.com/send it to learn more and start scaling your customer engagement today. Now let them know Chase and Jimmy sent you. Now let's get back to the pod. Yeah, that makes total sense. And look, email is the perfect medium for this type of content because you can include all those detailed information, the photos, and even the video content that builds that comprehensive understanding. In fact, there's a lot of ways you can build this stuff. If you're listening to this pod and you're like, well, what would I do as a high-end product? So, and show behind the scenes or transparency. Well, there's things like a factory tour or manufacturer process documentation. That's one way. Another way I see is like team highlight spotlights, right? Key personnel, their expertise. Oh, this guy, if you're Rolex, for example, this guy's been making watches for 90 years or whatever it might be, right? I like the QA stuff, right? Quality assurance and testing explanations, how they're doing that. Always customer service. I'm always been with the commitment of explaining how great your customer service is because people who spend a lot of money want great customer service. That's kind of yin and yang when it comes to like things that have to fit together really well. I like when you talk about high ticket products and you're thinking about like the honest discussions about product limitations questions or ideal use cases, really just making sure that you understand where it works and where it doesn't work. And then, of course, the biggest thing for me when I'm looking at products that are expensive is actually the warranty and the guarantee behind it. I think that's really important. What else are you thinking when you think about this stuff? Because that's on the email side.
Yeah, my only thing to quickly add would be, SMS is a great complement here by providing kind of these quick updates about company news, achievements, certifications, anything that reinforce kind of the trust factor and your credibility is key.
Okay. So the key here is being like proactively transparent rather than waiting for
Yep.
customers to ask questions. And that can be done by anticipating their concerns and addressing them openly, which we probably know as a product company of what your customers are looking for.
Yeah, for sure. And this transparency does need to extend to kind of pricing discussions too. High ticket customers do appreciate the understanding of exactly what they're paying for.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Okay. The third strategy centers around symmetrically building social proof and credibility, right? Which is crucial for high ticket purchase confidence. And you know social more than anyone between you and I. Talk to us about social proof and why it's so important, man.
Yeah, dude, going back to that coffee example I talked about earlier, religiously was reading reviews. I was looking at stars. My wife's like, "Why do you care so much?" I'm like, "Well, to me, this is everything, right?" People that leave reviews are either fanatic or they're crazy. Like they either love it or they hate it. And you want to
Sure.
read the good and the bad because you want that exposure. So, with that, right, the social proof, especially for high ticket, is super important because the stakes are high and the perceived risk is high.
Hmm.
So that being said, right, it's not just about collecting testimonials. It's about strategically presenting these different types of social proof that address
Hmm.
specific concerns and objections. So, you and I talk a lot about the importance of copywriting. You know, a lot of great copywriters know the importance of, addressing pain points and concerns ahead of time. Because as soon as people start to have them and you're not talking about them, it's too late. So with that, that kind of brings us to our strategic social proof framework. And there's kind of three key components. So I'm going to break it down starting with the first. So the first is kind of this diversified proof types for different customer concerns. So to kind of elaborate on that. So we're gonna want to have a different mixture of things. The first, if you can get expert endorsements for credibility and authority, that's great. A lot of people are doing the whole like Huberman thing for like supplements or anything
Hmm.
around health and wellness. The next is peer testimonials for relatability and trust. If you're this isn't an e-com company, but if you're a software company that's in email space, if you had, other agencies or other marketers or other people that you maybe have heard of or know of, or they're someone that is relevant in the space, that's a great kind of testimonial for a software company that sells email SaaS, right? Maybe if an OmniSend had a review from, myself or yourself, maybe that could be defined as expert, but that might be a peer as well. Usage statistics and performance data is really important as well. That way people can kind of make rational justification of it. And then media coverage, right? Like press mentions, kind of celebrity endorsements, any kinds of awards. I know a lot of like brands, for example, they might get like a GQ award, or they might get some other type of big health and wellness type company that does an annual reward type thing, giving them kind of that third party validation. So that's kind of the first point. The next is kind of more life cycle appropriate social proof delivery. So again, depending on where people are in their buying decision, either brand new all the way to having made a purchase, you're going to want to hit them with different types of social proof. So in the early stages, when people are probably newer to your brand and they're kind of just discovering you, more of like the awareness phase, having kind of the industry accolades and the recognition there, as long as alongside the kind of expert validation, that's super important. And then as they move into more of this consideration phase, having kind of more detailed case studies or kind of testimonials and peer reviews, that's really helpful there. And then once it's time to actually make that kind of buying decision when they're in that phase, recent customer success stories is super important, and any kind of satisfaction data, especially if someone's never bought before, showing this from people that have recently purchased for the first time allows them to see themselves in their shoes, which makes that decision easier to say yes to. And then again, post purchase, it doesn't end when someone buys something. You have to continue it on,
Hmm.
showcasing the community, showing kind of advanced user stories. This helps reduce buyer remorse and really helps set up that kind of repeat purchase. And then last but not least, focusing on kind of more detailed storytelling rather than simple testimonials is super important. So everything from like complete customer journeys, focusing on kind of the narratives there from problem all the way through the end solution that actually gets the job done, focusing on really specific results and measurable outcomes. again, it has to feel and it has to be tangible. Kind of the challenges that people have overcome and how the product has helped with that. Again, it's the whole thing about like the benefits, really kind of sell it, right? The features tell, the benefits sell type of a thing. And then really long-term satisfaction and continued value realization from these purchases. So with that, right, kind of to summarize, the key insight here that I want you guys to take away is that high ticket customers want to see and need to see proof from people like themselves who have faced similar challenges, getting kind of that relief and that solution and that resolution from what you sell. Hey, it's Chase, taking just 30 seconds of your time because I found something game changing for e-commerce marketers and agencies. If you happen to be drowning in retention marketing tasks, we have a solution for you. It's AI. There's an AI strategist, AI segmentation, AI email builder. It's called Rayleon, and this is the platform that helps marketers like myself and yourself create everything from emails to custom segmentation based on your data and your email marketing strategy. I mean, imagine getting everything from an audit to campaign planning in just a handful of clicks and in under 5 minutes. Their AI handles everything from segmentation to strategy and creating on-brand copy that actually converts. Brands using Rayleon save about 50% of their retention marketing time and see an average of 3x ROI. Yes, you're going to save time and make more money. Talk about a no-brainer. And this is really why brands like Coast, Ginger Milk, and Life Pro trust them and really utilize them and start recommending them to everyone. So head to Rayleon.io, that's RALEON.io, for a 3-month email AI segmentation playbook in just 60 seconds. Yes, it's 100% free to try, and this will be the best 5 minutes you spend today, I promise. Rayleon.io, let them know that myself and Jimmy sent you, and we're now back to the pod.
No, that makes total sense. Like a business owner who's looking at some $15,000 piece of equipment, they want to hear from other business owners, not just read like generic positive reviews, right? And a proof needs to be substantial enough to justify the investment. A simple, great product testimonial, I don't think carries enough weight. In fact, if I'm thinking about different tactics, you're thinking about things like a customer spotlight series with like detailed case, which could be like a monthly or quarter dive in on a specific customers that includes photos, videos, or some type of measurable result when possible. And it should cover that decision making process and why they chose that product. And also probably discuss like that long time, like, oh, 2 years later, we're still very happy with this product because of this and that, like an update testimonial. I love those when people attach those to case studies. I also think the whole expert validation and endorsement ones always work, right? Like having industry professionals, if you're in like, I don't know, in vacuum sales, having the best vacuum person in the world talking about their thought leadership around why they believe this product is great, or, a technical review from a professional that it can assess that product, or even sharing like recognize like things from like trade publications, magazines, industry organizations. I feel like that expert validation is really good. And of course, UGC is really always important. That user generated content or like that community showcase, I think those are always good. They feature customer projects and they show off the creative applications of people. They highlight the customer's expertise. They create exclusive content for like the community. All of this is going to give that social oomph that people are looking for. You simply just cannot have testimonials on your site. And, of course, coming back to email, I believe that email is great and allows you to tell these complete stories with rich media, and it details the information, while SMS can highlight key achievements or new testimonials as they come in, but it's not going to drive that warm, fuzzy feeling that email does.
Yeah, for sure. And I think some of the things that we've seen and we've discussed in the past is like these brands that kind of create this monthly customer spotlight series that become kind of highly anticipated content, even among prospects who haven't purchased yet. They want to see it and they want to understand like what's happening.
Yeah. And one thing I'll add to this is that it's really, really important to make these social proofs very discoverable and referenceable. People need to be able to look and return to these reviews multiple times, especially during a long consideration process. One effective one, kind of like you mentioned before, that I've seen in the market is like success stories, an archive that customers can access anytime, then using email and SMS to keep highlighting some of those new additions to the place. So that's a good one. I like that one. All right. Another one I wrote down here is Strategy is the fourth strategy, and involves using email and SMS to deliver personalized consultation and white glove service throughout the sale process. Tell me more about this one, because this was one that you brought to the table.
Yeah, this is a good one. This is really where high ticket marketing starts to differ from kind of volume e-commerce. And really, the higher margins here justify and require more personalized attention. I mean, again, obviously, right, personalization should be everyone's goal, but at this stage and at this kind of price point and in this realm, customers do expect it and they need it and they want it. So when someone is considering a significant investment, they want to feel like they're receiving this individual attention and expertise. And that's why, right, like a lot of people selling in person at retail, and obviously a lot of why cars are purchased in person, et cetera, is because you get this kind of hand holding. So with this kind of personalized service framework, it covers a couple key things. So the first is kind of this consultation driven
Mm,
communication approach. So you're going to want to offer kind of this one-to-one type consultation at key decision points. So making yourself available. And this might even be hopping potentially on a call with someone if it's really that high ticket. It might be kind of setting some messages up, exchanging some emails. There's a number of ways to actually kind of facilitate this. And then from here, right, you're going to want to provide really personalized recommendations based on their specific needs. Not all needs are the same, and you're going to want to be very individualized and specific here. And then, right, you might even want to create custom proposals and configurations for individual customers. So, I'm thinking about you, for example, you're a big car guy. For some of your car parts and some of the car stuff that you do, I could imagine the configuration for maybe your car that's maybe a 2018 and this body type might be different than someone that has a 2002 or a 2025, right?
yeah,
So making
absolutely.
sure that you get that hand holding that you need for your specific needs. If you want to drift, if you want to go fast, whatever that looks like, I'm kind of just spitballing, but
Yeah.
and with that kind of assigning a dedicated contact for ongoing relationship management. So this is really more like kind of CRM, kind of,
Mm.
one to one, but also one to many in a way that's more kind of personal, I guess, for lack of a better word. So that's super important there. And then moving on with this, like you also want to have really proactive customer service and guidance. So you're going to need to anticipate questions and concerns before customers ask. And this is just a matter of getting reps, right? The better you know your customer, the better you know your product, the better that you know kind of the friction points, and you can kind of get ahead of those. That's ideal. And then offering kind of implementation planning and setup assistance, right? That's why there's a lot of big companies in the software space that help you set up like a Salesforce or something else because it really does need handholding. And then creating kind of personalized timelines and milestone tracking is key. And that is everything from like if you order a really custom mattress or something, everything from like, the time of ordering to when it gets delivered to when it gets assembled to the check-in points to making sure that people
Mm.
are maximizing each of the features that they mentioned that they were really into. That helps with kind of repeat purchase, referrals, great reviews, reducing buyer's remorse. And then lastly, is kind of this VIP treatment and exclusive access. Like these are the people that are willing to spend. These are the people that are pulling out kind of their hard-earned money to buy your product or service. So giving them early access to new products and features, offering them access to exclusive events and any kind of educational opportunities is really cool. They get to join kind of this elite club, for lack of a better word. And then having direct lines of communication with you and other decision makers ongoing is great, not just before they buy, but after they buy is super important. And then again, developing these custom solutions for these unique requirements as they run into issues or as they run into needs goes a long way.
Yeah, I like this. The consultation driven framework makes a lot of sense. And obviously, email is the perfect way of delivering those detailed, personalized proposals and recommendations, or even appointment setting that customers can review and reference. So that comes into place. But also, I think when you think about that, the whole immediate connection, like especially post connection that you may have made with them or appointment. I think this is where SMS really jumps in. And this is a little bit less the whole like bulk SMS, but SMS creates that like immediate personal connection that makes the customer feel prioritized and valued. So an example is like a luxury retail watch retailer that we worked with. They would send these personalized SMSs rather than actual sales association, sales associates, creating these like relationships that feel rather personal rather than like an automated feel, because it was almost like they were told as like, hey, it's a time for a touch point, less than it is like, hey, let me send this automated SMS out, and you would want to respond if it became relevant there. So some of the other things that I saw with that was like those individual consultation bookings and confirmation sequences that we've seen, where like you get the personal invite to schedule one, then you customize that, like those materials based around. So you'd probably have set materials that you need to send a person based around what the booking looks like. And then having those follow-up summaries. I think the key here is like, if you're going to go down this route and have like these different things, you've got to also have a good summary and ongoing check-ins also through an extended period. So that was one thing I saw. Another thing that comes into place when they're more high ticket is there's more custom recommendations and proposals that are coming into place, right? You're offering different products, like you mentioned, like a car world, like there's different configurations and options. Your pricing becomes very detailed and like unique to you. It's a custom like implementation usually, because it all depends on you. And then even down to the pricing, man, it's not just like one pricing. It's like financing options, payment plans. You've got to show them all, because when you've got a high ticket product, especially because you don't know if it's an impulse buy or if it's something they've been thinking for a long time, you've got to give them all the options so you can knock down every barrier. And the last thing that I think I saw, which was really great, is like it's always about that dedicated relationship management, right? You meet somebody from the beginning and they take you all the way to the end. They do regular check-ins through the consideration. They do updates, right? Personalized updates with even relevant products or updates around product development. And they always offer you that direct access for questions and concerns that you might have along the way. There's no doubt that's super important.
Yeah, and as I think about this, right, the key really is making this kind of personalization scalable through having good systems and processes so it doesn't become overwhelming for your team and actually becomes something that's achievable.
Right, right. And you need those like templates and frameworks that can be customized efficiently rather than scratch each and every time. I think that's the key here.
Yeah, and then also the tracking component is crucial, right?
Mm.
You need to know where each high value prospect is in their journey so you can provide appropriate levels of service and you're not talking to them at the wrong stage. And if someone bought, you're not trying to get them to buy the thing that they already bought. You really have to track it.
Yeah, no, I love that one. And I think that leads us to our fifth strategy, because everyone loves urgency and exclusivity and so forth. But when you're working on a high ticket product, it requires a kind of a finesse to create that urgency and exclusivity without damaging the trust and consideration process. What do you know about this, Chase? You're pretty good at this stuff.
Yeah, this is tricky. There's definitely a final line that you have to walk, and you have to be careful not to cross it. So, with the high ticket product, as you kind of mentioned, traditional urgency tactics can backfire and make you seem pushy or untrustworthy or honestly, frankly, cheap,
Hmm.
and not premium, right? And that is really damaging. So, fake countdown timers, kind of unnecessary aggressive scarcity tactics don't work when customers do need some time to make thoughtful decisions. And if you do feel like you're rushing them, they're going to go somewhere else that where someone else feels more helpful versus kind of like needy. So, kind of talking through this kind of strategic urgency framework. Again, if there is scarcity and exclusivity, it does need to be legitimate, right? When you think about Rolex, like they're not like super salesy trying to get you to buy. It's like if you buy, great, and if you don't, that's too
Yeah.
bad. Their kind of scarcity and exclusivity is built into their launches and their drops because there's a limited number and people want them, and there's kind of a secondary market, right? So you have to kind of get it on the initial drop. So kind of these limited production runs, as you kind of alluded to, based on manufacturing constraints, is a real thing, and kind of point to that and talk about that. Seasonal availability tied to genuine business cycles, right? So things sell really quickly in certain seasons or certain months, depending on what you sell, and other times maybe not as much. Having kind of some exclusive access for qualified customers or early adopters gives them kind of the first look and also does apply some pressure. It's like, hey, we're giving you a week heads up about this before we kind of open this up to the public. Like, we have 500 of them. The choice is yours whether you want one or not. And then kind of waitlist management for popular or limited products also works really, really well. So moving on from there, having kind of some value-based urgency rather than pressure-based is super important. So anything like a price increase with genuine business justification works.
Mm.
Having things like limited time bonuses or package deals. So maybe you don't have to straight discount it, but maybe you're adding in kind of a bundle or a bonus for that's time-based for the next 24 hours. We're adding X, Y, and Z that we don't normally add. And maybe there is a kind of like a early adopter benefit for new products and or kind of some seasonal promotion tied to these natural buying cycles. So the last thing to kind of go on in this framework is relationship preserving urgency tactics. So what I
Mm.
mean here is giving, again, advanced notice for customers in the kind of the consideration process of what's coming, kind of gently nudging or giving kind of subtle reminders about opportunities rather than being really aggressive. And that's just like a messaging kind of a trust building thing. Having kind of educational content about these time and considerations, and then ultimately respecting their decision. If they tell you they're not ready and they still need more time, respect it. So I'd say to summarize all this, the key really is around creating urgency about value and opportunity rather than kind of artificial pressure, because people can read through the artificial. They've been there, done that, and it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, and I think being transparency about why urgency exists, whether then it's limited in inventory or price changes or season factors. I mean, if you look at it, and I like cars and stuff. One car company, Ferrari, for example, and I'm using like the creme de la creme here, but they do this perfectly about being transparent about their limited productions and their wait lists and their extensive time for customers to configure and wait for their purchases. It can take you 1, 2, 3, 5 years to get off a wait list to make a purchase of a brand new Ferrari, which is why the used market is so hyped up, because it's so hard to get a new one. Some of the ways that I've seen some good urgency tactics in this market, pre-announcements and like reservation systems, super easy way to think about it. Like you can get notified about upcoming product releases, hint, hint, get on the email list or SMS list to do that. You can do like reservation opportunities, priority access, advanced notifications. These are all key items there. Also, another one that I've seen is exclusive access and VIP opportunities, right? A private sale event. You said it already before, but
Yeah.
people like early access, and they love early access to things like limited editions or special configurations. They like members only pricing. They like all that. And then, of course, there's always the seasonal urgency, right? Maybe tax season. I mean, every year you talk to your accountant, they're like, do I need to buy a car or not? Right. The tax season urgency, I call it, right? That's what I always look for it. It hasn't been telling me to buy cars pretty often lately, but I'm waiting this year. I hope that he wants me to buy a car, for example, right? Because that gets me juiced because I want to go buy a car, right? There's holiday promotions that are like genuinely like value additions, like when they start bundling the stuff and offering like a special thing. I always love a good year-end inventory consideration, like, oh, we have high inventory, we're doing a big sale, or even the new models. I think the new model updates are always great too. And when you're high end, sometimes people are just waiting for your newest model because they don't want last year's model. It happens in like TV and stuff like that. And let's be honest here, email works the best for all of this. They provide the best advanced notice and detailed explanations that are important with urgency factors.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've mentioned this a few times, but SMS really can be effective for these time sensitive notifications as long as they're not too frequent and they do provide genuine value.
That makes sense. And I think the key for maintaining trust while creating appropriate motivation to move forward in these sales process, we found that educational urgency, explaining why timing matters for a customer's specific situation, is more effective than like an artificial deadline, right? So that leads me to the final focus. And, one of the things that we started talking about was like, the period after that initial consultation or demonstration, when the customer is making that final decision. This is where often when you're selling a high ticket product is either won or lost. In the weeks or months following that initial engagement, when customers are kind of comparing options and justifying their investments. What have you seen here, Chase, in this market?
Yeah, kind of double down on what I mentioned before. I'd say a lot of companies really drop the ball here by either being too aggressive
Mm.
or maybe they just disappear entirely after the initial consultation. That's like the worst thing you could do, right? Is you got someone teed up and then you just ghost them.
Yep.
And a lot of times people ghost them because we talked about before, they just don't have the systems and processes in place to actually do the proper tracking and the follow up. So, in terms of this kind of like post consultation nurturing framework that we've developed, it starts with systematically following up and relationship management, right? So, you need to have a structured follow up timeline based on customer preferences. And each preference for each customer might be different. Some people probably want you to stay on them and they know they're going to forget unless you follow up, and other people are going to be super on top of it and going to say less is more. When you do kind of follow up, make sure that you're doing value added kind of content delivery between these kind of consultations. That way, it's not just like sale, sale, sale. You're adding a lot of value in between and you're kind of giving them stuff to think about before you guys discuss things again. And more of these gentle kind of check ins that provide assistance rather than pressure is the key. And always provide availability for additional questions and clarifications, right? Some people are afraid to ask things. If you make it really well known that you're open to answer anything via call or text or email, whatever the preference is of yourself and kind of the person on the other end, that goes a long way. And then also too, like providing decision support and objection handling. So you're going to want to be proactive in terms of addressing kind of common
Mm.
concerns and objections. Again, the more information that you can provide and the resources as things arise, the better. And the more kind of buttoned up and organized you are, and the quicker and cleaner you can get back to people, the better. A lot of times these deals are lost because people just take too long to respond. And making sure that you have flexible terms and kind of risk reduction offers when appropriate to try to get people that are close to buying but have maybe a slight kind of budget constraint but are close. Maybe if you have a $4,000 product, maybe allow them to buy it over time and buy it over payments, or maybe drop it down to a level that's reasonable for you and also reasonable for them. And then the last one is kind of maintaining momentum in terms of this maintenance without applying kind of too much pressure. So giving kind of relevant updates about product improvements, any kind of exclusive content that reinforces this value prop, and then delivering kind of social proof at strategic intervals is super important. So the goal here is to stay helpful and present without becoming annoying or pushy.
I definitely know that feeling, being in sales for so long, where there is a really healthy balance, and you want to be the first person they think of when they have a question, not someone they're kind of avoiding. I think that's the key lesson here that I hear when I think about that stuff. I mean, some of the things that I like when I see in this market, when I see like higher ticket value things that I can kind of add to this, is like consultation summary and next steps. I think that when people are delivering a very clear, documentation of what happened and what the timeline for decision making with flexible checkpoints, like that's really important. Making sure you give me your direct information so I can continue to ask ongoing questions, because I will have some, right? I think that sometimes a good value added follow up is always healthy. So you take some relevant case studies or some resources on how to use it, or like industry insights, anything you can do to almost ease that pain of like the guesswork that someone might have, even down to like how it's done on the implementation. If there's something that you actually need to do, like this hot tub, how long is it going to take me to deliver it to me? How long does it take to install? Like those things are specific questions that I have. And I think that a last thing that I think about tactical wise when you think about this is really the relationship maintenance mode. Basically, they're checking in on me, but not overly on top of me and trying to be push me, but they're really just checking to make sure that I have all the information. Some things that I've seen before is they'll invite me to like relevant events or like educational opportunities, webinars, different things to like get me interested. And yeah, you might not get a lot of people there, but it's highly focused and targeted, which is the key. And then of course, like references. I think that's the last one there. When you get into more expensive products, you sometimes want to reference, and it's a good time to offer that, because that might be the reason they're hesitating, because they just want to talk to someone or know more of it. And of course, when I think about this, email is absolutely the best way to follow up with that detailed material and maintaining educational value. But SMS is still just as important. It can be powerful for quick check-ins and time sensitive updates like, hey, how's it going, Jimmy? Like, when you've got that connection, it makes it really easy. And I think the measurement again comes back here, and it focuses on like engagement and quality and progression rather than that immediate conversion. Again, it's so hard to measure these things on conversion rate.
Yeah, that's right. Tracking things like response rates to follow-up comms to consultation to purchase conversion rates, everything from like time to decision for different nurture approaches, etc. Like all those things should be top of mind for you. And again, it's important to have a super clear system for tracking where each prospect is in their journey, so you can kind of provide appropriate levels of follow-up as necessary.
No, I love that. All right, let's wrap this thing up because we've gone long here. So let's summarize the key strategies using email and SMS to successfully market high ticket products with longer sales cycle. What do you think about this, Chase, as we kind of wrap this thing up?
Yeah, I'd say kind of for me, the key takeaway here is that high ticket marketing really does require patience and relationship building rather than a kind of aggressive conversion tactic. Just be patient. Know that if you do the foundational things and kind of put these things into place, that it's going to come. don't be so eager for the sale because that's going to rub people the wrong way.
You can learn a lot of that from the B2B side. I think a lot of people in B2B are very patient, especially with these long 1 year plus sales cycles that could occur. And your email and SMS program need to match that customer natural buying decision rather than trying to accelerate it artificially. I think I'll say that again because people understand. Don't try to accelerate buying decisions artificially. Provide them with all the different things. So here's some of the things we did. I think there was about 6 things we talked about here. So one, we talked about focusing on education and expertise building rather than the immediate conversion, right? That's pretty easy. Transparency was big here. You want to build trust and differentiation from like that whole secretive competitor side of things. You want to leverage social proof, but addressing specific concerns and objectives, not just some blanket testimonial page, right? You want to provide personalized consultation and white glove services throughout the entire journey. Anything you can do to really up level that experience. You also want to create that legitimate urgency, right? Year end sale, we're going to a new model, get your best deal today, or exclusivity without damaging. I really only have 5 products left, right? You want to maintain good follow up with the consultation without being too pushy. And you also want to manage the engagement quality, right? You want to measure that more then you want to then you want to look at conversion rate. I think I got it at all, right?
Yep. And the last thing is, remember that high ticket customers often becomes your most valuable advocates and repeat customers. So this investment in relationship building does pay dividends well beyond the initial sale.
Yeah, the longer the sales cycle actually creates an opportunity to build a stronger relationship and deepen the brand loyalty than quick purchases ultimately.
And for listeners that, if you're just getting started with this high ticket marketing, begin by first mapping out kind of
Mm.
your customer's actual decision making process and then align your email and SMS sequences to support each stage.
Yeah, you're right about that. We've been doing a lot of mapping out what we explain, and one thing I learned is you don't want to try to implement all of these all at once. Start with the educational, then the trust building, then layer on additional tactics, and learn what resonates with your specific customer base before you go crazy.
Yep. And be patient and relationship focused while also systematically guiding these customers towards kind of their confident purchase decisions.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think there's a lot we went through here. That's a wrap here for episode 36. Email and SMS for high ticket product nurturing, longer sales cycles, right? There's so much that we've been effectively learning within ourselves as we've been getting into some of this stuff. And I think that a lot of this stuff should resonate with you, especially for those selling those couple hundred to couple $1,000 products that might be listening to this pod. And this even applies to B2B. I feel like a lot of the stuff that we talked about applies to B2B too. So listen, guys, if you enjoyed this pod today and you watch, make sure you give a boom thumbs up, subscribe, follow, leave us a rating, and leave us a comment in the comment section to let us know your thoughts. We always want to get that feedback from the listeners, just like we asked you guys, right? You can follow this show on X, LinkedIn, YouTube, IG, TikTok, but YouTube is our main channel. So if you're listening to this pod on Spotify, Amazon, Apple Music, come check us out on YouTube because that's where you're going to be able to see our pretty faces along the way too. All right. A few ways to connect with us. If you want to connect with us, number one, we have a newsletter. It's called Ecom Email Marketer. It's in the show notes. We talk about retention each and every day, 5 days a week. We'll send you a great newsletter, teach you stuff, break things down, and so forth. If you want to get closer with us, we offer 2 levels of different things. We offer a community and a certification program. The community is a bunch of retention marketers like yourself that are in there talking and learning, talking about different things, asking questions. That's great. If you really have no idea what we talked about and you want to get certified and you really want to get to that next level and learn about it, or you know just the basics about email and you want to get into it, we have a great certification program, 25 hours long, includes a full exam, and we'll get you certified so you can proudly present it on your social media too. Last but not least, you can follow us personally. Chase, where can they find you online?
I'm on most platforms, Chase Dimond, no A in Diamond.
Yep. And you can find me on LinkedIn and X today. That's where I post often. All right. Next week, Chase, we're coming back with something a little bit different because I think it's good time to kind of talk about this because, I was at this event recently and I saw a lot of people talk about direct mail ultimately, right? And so I basically went off and found the best guys in direct mail and e-commerce. And I said, come talk to us. And basically we told them to come talk to about 3 strategies that combine direct mail with retention, good tactical information on how to leverage direct mail with great email and SMS. So we're going to talk about that next week. with that being said, thanks for, as always, Chase, for being on this pod, and see you guys all next week.
From the open to the click, they're the masters of the flow. Just watch your list grow and your leads turn to gold. Did we retain you so far, or do we have to extend it? If you want results, you know you gotta send it. Yeah, you know you gotta send it. Yeah, you know you gotta send it. Yeah, you know you gotta send it.